Right, we asked you the question before going to break in terms of what interventions do you think are needed to solve the country's current electricity crisis?
Yeah, you can send us your thoughts at the agenda_SABC. Let's put some of them up and read them out.
Tenolo Revelation saying IPP's contracts must be cancelled. They are of no use. One expected them to maybe augment, I don't know, but dolelo. Also lack of leadership in the reason.
Sibulele says they must just privatize Eskom. This is enough now.
Glenn, new government and install wind power turbines and solar farms. Simple.
The Observer's saying, well, privatize, privatize, privatize.
Nkosnati Captain saying renewable energy still don't understand why we don't do solar power street and traffic lights. Subsidize people who are off the grid, also those people who can feed back the grid if there is excess power. That is a brilliant suggestion for people to feed back into the grid.
We do appreciate your thoughts at the agenda_SABC. Well, as South Africans struggle with load shedding, delegates to the United Nations COP25 summit are discussing ways to minimize the reliance on coal. It comes as Eskom says load shedding will continue for the rest of the week. SABC reporter Noma Bolani is freezing in Madrid, Spain. She comes to us now live. Noma, very good morning to you. What's South Africa's message, I guess, at this all-important climate change summit?
Yes, the Minister, Barbara Creecy, is going to deliver the country's statement just before lunch today, basically speaking about how they want developed countries to give more money to help with the mitigation factors. She's saying that they're not going to be increasing the carbon reduction targets as yet. That will be taken for the 2020 COP26 next year. But right now, we are outside the COP25 venue here in Madrid, where the Japanese activists are basically protesting against Japan financing a lot of coal, and they're saying that Japan is financing coal projects in Africa as well as Southeast Asia, and they want this to stop. We're joined by South African energy researcher JC Burton to speak to us about Japan's plans in South Africa. JC, let us know, what exactly are Japan's plans in South Africa?
Hi, Noma. Well, Japan's Marubeni is one of the investors in the SABC project in Lephalale in South Africa. Japan is the second biggest financier of coal in the world. And given that there's a climate crisis, this is an unacceptable waste of resources, A. Secondly, some of the research we've done shows that the coal-independent power producers, SABC and Kanisa, will need 23 to 28 billion rands worth of subsidies from South African consumers to be built. So essentially, we are subsidizing Japanese, South Korean companies when we're in an electricity crisis in South Africa and people can't afford electricity and businesses are closing. That it would make far more sense to build a wind and solar future for South Africa, which is the cheapest, and two, also has climate change, air pollution and other kind of benefits for South Africa.
And JC, South Africa yesterday announced stage 6 load shedding. What exactly is the solution for us, in terms of electricity as well as power?
Well, it's an unprecedented crisis for our economy. I think we're already in a crisis in South Africa. We're not even going to have 1% GDP growth, and now we're turning off mines, we're turning off factories. The quickest solution is for Minister Mantashe to lift the limits on own generation for businesses and people to put solar on their roofs. And the second thing is that he should immediately announce a new procurement round under the renewable energy procurement rules, because wind and solar are the two things that we can get onto the grid the fastest. That's really the only solution. The integrated resource plan has a 2 to 3 gigawatt shortfall over the next few years in South Africa. If we don't start procuring new capacity and very quickly, we're going to face years of load shedding.
Here at COP25, how important is it for the SA delegation to maybe find sort of sponsors to kind of help us into the just transition to move the country into renewable energy?
I think it's really important, and this is potentially the role of countries like Japan, China, South Korea, Europe and the USA. Really, they should be supporting us in our transition away from coal and towards renewable energy, instead of us subsidizing new coal plants for Japan's Marubeni. There's some work that's being done both at UCT and Stellenbosch on how this could look, and there's also some work that has been done on how we can potentially rescue both Eskom and start to fund the just transition. I mean, this is integral. I think if Minister Creasy really wants to show ambition for South Africa, this is what she should be focused on. Funding the just transition and the energy transition, which is actually the cheapest option for South Africa now and good for climate change.
The final question is, speaking from personal point of view, how do residents of South Africa kind of cope with the stage 6 load shedding? How do they move to having power when we have these rolling power cuts?
I think I understand from Twitter that people are losing cell phone signal. In Cape Town, they've announced that they can't reticulate water, so there's actually a much bigger crisis than simply not having power. We're now not going to have water. And this is potentially the future that's coming for climate change as everything becomes more of a crisis and infrastructure starts to fail. So we really should be thinking as South Africa about how our energy future is also going to be a future that's really good for development. I'm not looking forward to going back to 8 hours of no electricity per day.
Thank you. That was Jessie Burton, the SA Energy experts. So today, in this afternoon, we're going to have a session with Barbara Creasy speaking with the BRICS ministers about how exactly they can work together into moving into the just transition of renewable energy. Back to you in studio.
Yeah, Noma, we've been hearing from the BRICS nations who have been pleading to developed nations to expand their not only financial but technical assistance to other developed underdeveloped countries, one might say, in order to mitigate some of the effects of climate change. We know the issues of greenhouse gases that is warming the planet. We've been talking about this for the longest of times, and the margin is so narrow. It's just 2 degrees since a pre-industrial, industrial times that we're talking about, and there you see the climate change effects of drought, extreme weather. But anything tangible, very briefly, Noma, anything tangible that is being put on the table in order to take this argument forward?
Nothing tangible has been put yet. The negotiations are at a deadlock. We had the opening ceremony right now of the high-level segment where the president of COP25 as well as the executive secretary of the UN FCCC saying that Article 6, which basically is the policy that speaks about the mechanisms of how the developed world can help the global south in terms of those technology transfers as well as money, is that they need to sit down and make sure that, the equity is shared. The people who are emitting the most greenhouse gas emissions are the ones who are providing the support to the countries who are suffering the most. So this includes Africa, this includes the Caribbean. We've seen, devastation like Hurricane Dorian in the Caribbean happening this year. So they're saying that the countries with the least emission must be supported, and this Article 6 must be finalized at this COP25.
All right, Noma Bolani, live for us in Madrid, Spain. Thank you very much indeed for your reporting. All right,
let's go to